Hello, it's Keith here and this is lesson 15 of my 6.5 Auto Assembly programming tutorials. This is the simple series in which we do basic examples in a single assembly file. We're going to be taking the last example, which we did a simple smiley sprite, and we're going to be adding joystick control to it. We're going to move that smiley sprite around the screen, and the intention of this is that you could use this as the template for a simple game of your own, and that's what I actually did with the Z80 series, and I made a little game called YQuest based on the Z80 equivalent of today's example. So let's go over to today's source code and let's actually see it in action. Okay, so here's today's example. We'll just fire it up and check it really works, because sometimes unfortunately they don't. I think it will though. Okay, so here we've got a nice big smiley face on our screen, and I'm using the cursor keys to simulate the joypad controls, and you can see we can move our smiley around, but we can't go off the screen. So we've got a sprite moving around the screen, controllable by the user, and we've got some boundary checking there. And as I say, this is based on the previous smiley example that we looked at before in the simple bitmap series. Now we're going to go over the new code today, but we're not really going to cover the code that was already there last time. So if you've not seen that simple bitmap example and you need more help on the graphics routines, please take a look at that and you will see in there how these work. Okay. So the first thing you can see here is we've got some new variables here. We're using some 0-page entries to store the X and Y position of the current sprite and the X and Y position of the last sprite here. Now these are going to be used for our drawing routines, and then we've got some initialization, a cartridge header, things like that. We're not going to cover these again today, we've covered these before. Now the start of the code for today's lesson is really here. So what we're doing is we're loading an initial position of the player, we're loading in the X and Y position, and we're loading in the player position as 3,3 here, and then we are going to skip over the first reading routine the first time this routine runs. The reason for this is that typically we're waiting for the player to press a key before we do any kind of drawing, and so if we did that the first time, then the player wouldn't see where they were before they actually pressed a button. So we're skipping over that for the first draw by jumping just to here. Now at this point we're loading the current position of the player, and we're backing this up into the backup versions X2 and Y2, and then we're running blank player. Now blank player and draw player are based on last time's smiley sprite example. The only thing that's changed is we're now got two versions with an alternate sprite version. Now here's the smiley sprite that we drew on the screen, and this is our player sprite. We've now got this blank version which is just 32 zeros, and that is to clear the sprite off the screen when the sprite has moved. And the only difference between these two versions is the source sprite. They're both just drawing to the X and Y position specified. Now, as well as being able to draw two versions of the sprite, the other thing that's changed is we now need to read in from the joystick. Fortunately, the Atari Lynx makes it super easy for us. We just read in from memory address FCBO, and we get a digital value in up, down, left, right in the top 4 bits, and 2 fires and the other option buttons in the low bits. So we are just loading those in and storing them into ZH here. So this function will do all the work of reading our joystick for us. Okay, so once we've cleared the old sprite off the screen, we're loading the X and Y position into our registers X and Y here, and then we're getting the value returned from our reading joystick routine, and we're going to test each of the bits one by one. Now if a direction is pressed, we're going to need to change either the X or Y axis accordingly. If the button isn't pressed, we're skipping over that change to just here. So here we're moving up the screen, here we're moving down the screen, here we're moving to the left, and here we're moving to the right. So you can see we're just moving by 1 unit in each direction if the button's pressed. If the button's not pressed, we're skipping over that move. Whatever happens though with this routine, when we get to here, we've got the new position of the player. So we're updating the X and Y positions in the 0 page, and then we're going to check the boundaries. Now, top left corner of our screen is 0, 0. And if you go below 0 in 8-bit unsigned mathematics, you will rotate around back to 255. For this reason, to check our 0 boundary on the left, we actually can just check the right-hand boundary, because if we've gone below 0, we'll have actually ended up at 255. That's what we're doing here. We're comparing the X to 80 minus 3. That's because the screen goes from 0 to 79 and our sprite is 4 bytes wide. So we're just checking there, and if we've gone over that, we're just jumping to this reset routine here. And we're doing the same for the Y boundary, again jumping to the reset. The reset is just using that backed up version to overwrite the current position, so forcing the player back onto the screen. Whatever happens though, at this point we're ready to draw the current position of the sprite, and we're just using that draw player routine, which is again just the same smiley sprite routine we looked at last time. The final thing we do here is we've just got a loop here just to slow things down quite a lot, because the Atari Lynx has quite a fast processor and we've not exactly estimated very much of it in this example. But that's really all it takes to get a movable object onto the screen, and I'm hoping that you can use this as a sort of template to get yourself started with your own little game. You know, now you've got an idea of how you can draw sprites, how you can read in joystick input and move those sprites around, and so maybe you could take this code and split it out and add a computer control player and create some kind of battle game going on. But really, hopefully this is just a template for you to do whatever you want. Take it from here and use your own imagination. Well, that's actually all we're going to cover today. It was just a really simple example of how to get this working on the Atari Lynx. Hope you found it interesting. If you have, then please like and subscribe, because that really helps me out with the Google algorithms. They rank the videos by how many likes and views they get and things, so yeah, please do that. But whatever you do, I hope you'll enjoy programming the Atari Lynx and assembly in general. Take a look around my YouTube channel. I've got lots of other systems as well. Take care now. Thanks for watching today, and goodbye.